keep working on it. Sorry. I think we'll leave the chart as it is. Cheers, everybody. I know there's no one here right now, or probably not, but We do the recordings anyway. So if you're new here, just hang in, bear with me, and you'll figure it out as we go along. Every now and again I do a little video on YouTube, and I correlate the astrology of the day with, things in the world and life. Of course, this astrology here, I consider it as a form of sacred geometry. It's always perfect. Always, always. Doesn't matter how stressful it is or how good it is, it's always perfect, because everything is exactly as it should be. And how is that so, and why is that so? It's because it can't be any other way. Things are the way they are. The sun comes up, the sun goes down. Mercury likes to whiz around almost at the same speed. Same with Venus. Mars is a bit slower. You keep going farther out, and it's Jupiter much slower, Saturn much, much slower. And then you get into the great beyond, the impersonal planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. We can see the personal planets: Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. So that's where a lot of astrologers concentrate their work. Hey! Hello, Victor. Good evening. Hello, Tim McKee. First visit with you, kind of lost. Oh, don't worry about it. You can blame it all on the planets, as I will prove shortly. Everything. Never fear, Tim. I don't know if you're an amateur astrologer or you're just getting interested, but there is an uncanny correlation between what happens in the planets and what happens here on planet Earth in what we call human experience. It's quite staggering, really. Some of you may recall, I wrote my little book here years ago. It was called Wealth, Money, and Finance by yours truly, TarotLumination. Theme being global restructuring, January 2020. And kaboom, that already happened. That was an epic, multi-thousand year moment in astrology where Jupiter conjoined Saturn, conjoined Pluto. Imagine, it's like when you have three huge monster waves all coinciding simultaneously. And I don't know about you, if you remember, that was a very pivotal moment in world history where effectively the biological bomb was dropped on humanity. And the shock waves, the first ripple of the shock waves came out roughly in early March 2020, when it was announced we're going to have global lockdowns. And it sent the world into a spiral, a death spiral. Of course, we all knew that, because all of this it's written in the stars, okay? Mostly this theme here was about what actually goes on at the very pinnacles of wealth, money, and finance, power, money, and control, at the very top of the pyramid of power of the global elites. And what I try to explain here in a layperson's terms is how it's effectively a massive, beautifully, heavily, let's say, refined deception, fraud, okay? And the pinnacle of success with this incredible fraud is, in fact, the United States Federal Bank and the United States federal banking system, the federal bank shareholders, and secondarily all the other central banks across the world that had to start playing the game or they die. So it's been going on since 1913, and here we are like 110, whatever it is. I can't do the math. Over 100 years, like 110, 120 years later. And the fraud has been perfected and expanded to about as far as it can go. Just like a Ponzi scheme, a pyramid scheme, where eventually it all implodes and collapses on itself. The whole global financial system is based on debt, perpetual issuance of more and more debt, what we see as currency. Okay, let me get over here a second. Hold on. We sense it as currency, like these bits of paper in our wallet, and we are, let's say, brainwashed into believing that these things have value. And so long as the story holds true, then that's what it is. And the United States and the United States Federal Reserve banking system, along with the United States Treasury, and let's say the enforcers of the policies, that is the military-industrial complex, have done a spectacular job of propagating their shenanigans. Essentially, in essence, it is a mechanism for extracting wealth from the masses, we the people, the peasants, the serfs, the subjects, and harvesting all that energy, siphoning it further and further into the top of the pockets of the elites. It works beautifully for the elites at the destruction of we the people. It's designed that way. It's been working that way flawlessly since 1913. But the refinements went through in different evolutionary stages, like 1913. So immediately World War I began. And it's a banker's war. Yes, money, 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 big money, war. And that all came to an end, and so the opportunity ended there. So the banks decided what we need to do now is, with all the excitement of winning, we're going to flood the American market with currency. We're going to just issue debt to anybody, anywhere who wants debt, wants to borrow money. And so we had the roaring 20s, and everything expanded exponentially. Skyscrapers were being built, cities were expanding, corporations, everything was expanding because the money supply was expanding. And then came time to collect. And so the Fed basically quietly, discreetly stops issuing the currency because there is too much systemic risk. Like, people are binging on debt. So they decide, okay, it's time to harvest. We're going to do a massive harvest. So the currency is reduced, like switching off the faucet. And that creates a massive depression. The Great Depression in America, which has ripple effects across the world. Yeah. And then again, we get to the point, well, okay, how do we get out of the depression? The best thing to do is have a massive bloody war. But we need a much bigger, more bloody war this time. We've got a full-blown military-industrial complex to build. Once this war is over, we're going to keep it going. It's no longer going to be World War II. It's just going to be World War to infinity. And so that's what happened. We got 1939 to 1945, and then after 1945, you had all the, the federal communist policies that were propagated throughout the United States. Big government, FDR, Federal Roosevelt, where, we got to get people out of the depression after wars and things like that. Let's build bridges. We're going to build hospitals, airports, railways, trains, and everything. And we're going to do that? How? Because we don't have the money. Well, we're going to borrow it from the Federal Reserve and issue it through the Treasury. Bonds, debt. So we create a massive explosion of glorious times in the United States from post-World War II up until the early 70s. Just massive explosions in industrialization, commerce, global trade, lots of instability, of course. And that's just side effects. And then it became a bit of a problem because, what are we going to do? The banks now, we've kind of played all our cards. How are we going to keep inflating the currency? Otherwise, we're just going to start stagnating again. We're the feds. We're the elites. It's our mission to suck wealth and value out of you, the people. You know what? We have a really big problem. We have too much integrity, too much honesty, too much truth, too much reality in this whole system. That has to go. We're going to quit the gold standard completely. And that's after the United States dollar had already become the de facto world currency. But it wasn't enough. Got to keep going, inflating. And so once everything came off the gold standard, wow, that's like turning on a big faucet. More and more currency. And of course, debt binging, and it grows and grows from there. And then we get up to the different modern day cycles, which are more familiar. We had the big 9/11 crisis, 2000, and then we had the big great financial crisis, 2008, 2009. That was, of course, when Pluto was on the cusp of Sagittarius to Capricorn, overabundance to deep reality checks, massive global crash, but of course, the Fed bailed it out. All they had to do is press a few buttons, click, problem solved. In other words, the problems and the chaos within the banking system become the expense of the taxpayer, and the profits from the deception go to the banks. It's a fantastic system if you're one of the elites. And so we progressed, and then ever since 2008, now we're up at 2024, and a whole new mega crisis is in the making at a level that we've never seen before. We've just crossed $35 trillion in debt over here in the United States. So congratulations. Guess what? Everyone's thinking it's the end of the world. It's going to explode. Well, theoretically, yeah, these bubbles should explode. The problem is, when you dig really, really deep inside all this mechanism, there's absolutely nothing to stop the United States Federal Reserve Bank and the banking system and their shareholder banks and the United States Treasury and the issuing of bonds and the whole of Wall Street from changing their behavior. What is there to stop them? I don't see anything. What I see is the continuation of currency, more and more currency. 35 trillion, 36, 37, 38, 39, $40 trillion in a matter of a couple of years, maybe. They're doing it because they can. That is the mechanism by which they harvest their energy from us. Inflation works beautifully for the elites, but it destroys we the people. The rest of the world is starting to figure out how this mechanism works, and they're getting sick of it because the whole mechanism is designed to benefit these folks here. The Fed, right here. But what it does, it exports the problem, the inflation, the debt, to the rest of the world, making it very hard to keep up. It's a complex game, but there's really nothing to stop it because every other bank, in order to compete, they have to basically destroy their currency at the same time. In other words, if the United States dollar is here and we inflate more and more dollars, that makes us cheaper for the rest of the world, which makes us more competitive with business and exports. That's a huge problem for everybody else. So in order to balance out, they all have to start printing money, creating more debt, more inflation, and then it evens out. So it's everything kind of goes like this. It's a perpetual thing, going like this, and like this, and like this, and like this. The problem is, outside of America and the American banking system, it's very, very hard to play the same game to a level of absolute parity. China's been trying to do it for some time, but it is falling apart profoundly because they actually believed in their own fraud. They actually thought their fraud was real. So anyway, here we go. I want to get to the themes of the day, so I'm going to rush over to the charts here. Yes, Yeah, fiat money, it's basically make-believe money. It's very, very, very fancy, pretty paper. And it has the digital equivalent. And Tim McKee, you're absolutely correct to be scared. CBDCs are terrifying. You already know that the CBDC, the central bank digital currency, is a very, very subtle, extremely powerful, even more powerful extension of anything that we have now that effectively acts as a digital prison. The feds, the elites, they own it. The Bank of International Settlements has already got it in play. They've got the Enbridge system already hooked up. Central banks and big retail banks across the world are already implementing their CBDCs for their populations. China, of course, is already fully advanced on CBDCs. And God help China and the Chinese. Australia is in very, very deep trouble. They got CBDCs coming. A lot of Western Europe has CBDCs coming. It's very, very scary. Probably Canada too. Very, very, very scary stuff. I'm going to keep going on the theme of money because it's still incredibly important on the global, the movie that we're watching, okay? Uranus is in Taurus, second house of global money. Uranus is the planet of upheaval, chaos, destruction, awakening, shock, awe. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Radical innovations, revolution, the desire for absolute freedom and as the number one priority. And of course that plays out very, very well because the global population, apart from the elites, the rest of the world doesn't want to play this game. They want freedom. They want sovereignty of self. Think Aries North Node. Think Chiron in Aries right now. They want sovereignty of self. And one of the best ways they can do that is have financial sovereignty of themselves. In other words, when they work and they earn money, it's theirs. That's it. And then if you're in a country that has taxes, then maybe you have a simple system where you pay like 5 or 10% of your earnings to the federal government, which would be hopefully about 5% of your economy, and you charge them with taking care of things that governments should do. In the United States, the federal government has like, like 35% of the GDP or the employment. It's mind-boggling. It's very, very disturbing, very unstable. But anyway, get with this. One of the themes, when you get to the very end, what you realize is that World War III is really a currency war. It's being played out in the global foreign exchange marketplaces. Not a lot of people see that stuff because it's mostly played by the very, very biggest banks, or if you're an extremely hyper-skilled trader yourself. If you're not, if you don't have very advanced softwares like Aladdin, then you're going to get destroyed. So what happens in global currency trading, they typically place bets, short, long, win, lose, from one currency to another in order to play this game and take advantage of someone going up or somebody going down. And the winnings are based on arbitrage, the difference between, it's the spread between the winner and the loser. And sometimes you have to move very quickly, and to make it actually work, they typically make trades in the billions and the billions and billions of dollars per click regarding fractions of a percentage shift, change up or down at that moment in time, typically within a few seconds, a few minutes, and then that's it. Some play big long trades, but that's very hard. But anyway, that's going around all the time. And in the United States, the FX traders are basically doing everything they can to stay ahead of the rest of the world. And they do it, and they're successful because they can, and because they are the US dollar. They just have an advantage, and it's like the casinos in Las Vegas. The bank always wins in the long term, and that's it. So with Uranus in Taurus, we're dealing with huge amounts of instability, and we already talked about that months and months ago when we had Mars in Taurus, Jupiter in Taurus, and then the opposite with the Moon in Scorpio. Global financial mayhem, lots of headlines. We did that over the last few months. But the story's not over. In fact, it's going to get worse and worse. Uranus is about 26 degrees right now, and it's once in a matter of months, really, it's going to reach the 29 to 29.5 degree mark, at which point we are going to see an absolute chaotic mayhem in the global financial system. It's going to be very hard to predict what's actually going to happen because it's Uranus. Uranus is the planet of unpredictability. Anyway, the big banks, the big governments, they're all aware that this is going on, and they're trying to figure out how the hell are we going to survive. Let me go through a couple of things right now. I'm going to go back to the charts for a minute. As we've been talking for months now, we've got this ongoing crisis here. This is the crisis point over here with Pluto, crisis point over here with Neptune. This is very long-term crisis energy, and it's been playing out in the global media, the world history, war, banks, banking, politics, everything. I mean, you already know all the stories. There's the assassination attempt. There's the wars over here. I mean, everything has escalated in the last, I don't know, I would say since early last year. Well, really since January 2020, if you want to get serious. But it's more and more amplified right now. We have all the hot spots with all the violence, Mars energy, over here in the Middle East, Arabs versus Jews, basically. Over here in Ukraine, that's basically Russia and the tyranny versus so-called NATO and freedom, so-called. So war zone, war zone, war zone, war zone. And then we got the China, Asia Pacific thing going on here. 3 major war zones here, here, and here. But there's also a lot of secondary war zones over here, which are absolutely just sickening to watch and study, but they don't get the headlines because nobody really cares. It's very sad, but most of the big money countries and places don't really care what happens here. Over here, of course, we have astronomical chaos all the way from here all the way down to here because of the immigration stuff. But I want to get back to the money because it's very critical. You can have all the politics in the banks that you want, but if it's not working, then we have a lot of problems. So, you're probably aware that there's this alliance, okay, Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, that's trying to consolidate its energy and time and energy and resources in order to form a more powerful, let's say, force to resist the so-called West. Okay? I like to break it down because it's Pluto energy. Everything with Pluto devolves and devolves and devolves into a simple yes or no. Black, white, on, off, in, out, alive, dead, birth, death, so on. And it becomes very, very hard to hold a moderate place. I mean, people don't like it, but when people say if you're not with me, then you're against me. Or you're either for me or you're against me. It's very simple, but it's sometimes very hard to deal with that, and it doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's what's happening. So, actually, I guess I should preface this with the crisis point here. We're very close to, well, we're not very, we're actually at the 0 point. Let me just double check. No, we're at the 0 point for Pluto. We're absolutely right on the cusp here. So this is essentially very long-term, ongoing chaos in terms of a war. It's an existential war, tyranny versus freedom, freedom versus tyranny. Tyranny as represented by the elites, the global elites, the pyramid of power, and those at the very, 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 very top. You can imagine who they are, okay? Corporations, mainstream media, the banks, all of that, the politics and all of that. BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, Blackstone, Fidelity, all of that. All they're interested in is power, money, and control, more and more and more and more. It's slipping away from them because the rest of the world is figured out, because the veil of deception is being lifted, that there's tremendous evil and fraud being perpetrated by the elites up here. And it's so big and so obvious that the whole world is waking up and it's becoming very rebellious and warlike. And that essentially turns into a war. This aspect here is essentially war between, sadly it's about the unhealthy energy here. There's nothing wrong with Capricorn, nothing wrong with Pluto, nothing wrong with Pluto retrograde, except when the expression of energy is unhealthy as adopted by humans. Because it's up to you as the person, what are you going to do with your energy? This is my hand. Am I going to use it to be loving, or am I going to use it as a fist? So right now everything is coalescing into a very, very simple, ugly, ugly war scenario of tyranny versus freedom. Freedom versus tyranny. Interestingly enough, the tyrants are very few in number. There's maybe a few 100,000 or whatever. And the people, we the people, the subjects, the serfs, there's hundreds of millions of us, billions of us. Okay, so there's a numbers issue. Over here, this is the veil of deception that is being illuminated. We are being privileged to see behind the veil of deception now, and it's kind of a shocker. A lot of people across the world are waking up and realizing, my God, we've been screwed for so long. Decades and decades. So the question is, then what are you going to do about it? What do you want to do about it? Oh, I don't know. This is a major crisis point happening right now. This is very fierce, ferocious, large, high volume, emotionally charged, violent energy with the Gemini cluster here, hard squaring with Saturn in Pisces retrograde. There is a reckoning going on here. Anybody who has abused the beautiful, profound, loving energy of Pisces, Neptune, 12th house, is being exposed. This is the sickest of the sick, the most diseased and perverse of the perverted. And how they use deception, lies, betrayal, theft, bribery, corruption, sickness, disease, murder, incarceration, assassination, as a way to maintain their power, money, and control. And the rest of the world is figuring out, because it's what's exploding all over the global stage. Mainstream media. Even the mainstream media, which is owned and operated by the elites, is having an extremely hard time covering up the lifting of the veil. They're trying to close the veil so people can't see what's going on behind the veil. But the veil has been pierced. Mars in Gemini. The veil has been opened to the full scale possible, way more than anyone could have imagined. Jupiter in Gemini. The moon in Gemini. People are really feeling it. Like, it's how disgusting is this? From my perspective, I used to have to use horrible language. It's like putrid sewage. It's like the smell of dead bodies. It's like the smell of rotten flesh. I don't know if you ever come across that, but it's pretty vile. And that's the energy of the elites. They might look fancy with their suits and banks and offices and big buildings and capitals and printing presses for money and currency, but it's I don't know. There's no other. What's the other? What word? It's evil. Okay, just call it what it is. The evil is being exposed. So, I want to make a few points. Okay, let me get back to where I was before I got sidetracked. Over here, there's an alliance forming between China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. What did I miss? Oh, I guess Cuba is being brought into it as well. But anyway, China is still desperate. They're on a massive decline right now. But at the same time, they're doing everything they can to present to the world that they're the next most amazing thing on earth and they're going to take over the world and America. It's not working very well because they're actually imploding live real time right now. In fact, it's become such a problem that even the buddy-buddy network between Mr. Ping, Mr. Putin, Kim Il-jong, and the Ayatollah Khomeini, it's all kind of falling apart because their alliance was based on let's make this happen using the yuan, the Chinese yuan currency, as our new gold standard. Okay? In other words, the Chinese yuan is now going to be the gold standard for the world, and everyone will bow to China and Mr. Xi Jinping, especially the ruble and the other currencies from those other countries. Well, guess what? It's not working. The other countries that are trying to do settlements in yuan with China are realizing that it's actually not working well because the whole Chinese financial system is extremely hyper corrupt and the payments aren't going through to the right place of the right people at the right time for the right reasons. And so Russia has withdrawn its ruble to yuan transactions now in the billions because it's not working. So the alliance is desperate, okay? These are, I guess you could call them the tyrants. They want to take down the West, death to America, and all of that. They want to form this great alliance and with the BRICS and everything like that, but it's just not working. It looks great when they have meetings, but it's not actually working to date. I'm going to try and do a doodle about this one here. We've got something spectacular happening in China with what amounts to a Saturn return for their second house Pisces. Okay, I'm going to try and illustrate this. Bear with me. Let me get another doodle board here. I don't know if I can do this, but okay. Okay, so this is billions of dollars of money invested in China. Dollars into China. Okay, bear with me. Hang in with me. And this is time. Okay? And go back to, 1990 something. Let's just call it 1990. Okay? And then let's go up to, let's see, I gotta get this right. Hello, Heather. Hello, Love Triber. 2000, 10, 20, 2010, 2010, 2020, 1990 is way back there. Let's just call this 2000. Year 2000, year 2010, 2020, and now over here 2024. Okay, so bear with me. I hope, can you see this? Okay, this is a timeline, and this is billions of dollars poured into China. Now, like 40 years ago, China opened its gates to getting into the world stage out of desperation. Let's join the World Trade Organization as a special case, and we'll get privileges, and we will adopt a westernized profile to make it appealing for the Western wealthy nations to come and invest in China. In other words, China is opening the gate and saying, hey, we've got fabulous amounts of very cheap labor here. We've worked very hard. We're intelligent. Send us all your dirty work. We'll do it for you, dirt cheap, and we'll send you the finished goods, okay? So that's what we've been doing for the last, 20, 25 years. There's America, especially America and China. It's like a very sick marriage. It looks pretty on the outside, but essentially it's a marriage between a massive debt farm and a massive slave camp. Okay? They're both trying to exploit each other. And they have now officially basically extracted everything they can out of each other. And like typical marriages of convenience, once one party has extracted everything it could out of the other party, it tries to get rid of the other party through a massive divorce. The problem is, the divorce is very difficult because this is so entwined with the United States commingled finances that it's much harder to divorce China from America and America from China than anyone could have ever imagined. Right now, for example, go back over to here, around 2000, and for the 10 years or so before that, there was about this much in billions, whatever, coming into China from the rest of the world, mostly America. And that mostly started with Walmart. Okay? A lot of stuff you buy in Walmart, Target, those kind of big places, it all comes from China. It's outsourced and then it comes back. Eventually, it grew and grew and grew. Grew and grew and grew. And at around 2010, things were massive. There was a huge industrialization in China. They started building cities like weeds. Massive economic expansion into China. Once everyone else in the world starts to realize, oh wow, that's cool, they've got a slave camp. So Europe does it, everyone else in the world starts to do it, and everyone starts to lean on China for goods and products, like toys, batteries, TVs, laptops, phones, everything, all that stuff. And then it expanded, kept expanding, billions and billions pouring into China, and billions coming out in world trade, of course. So we know all that. I think it went kind of up and down a little bit, like that. And then in 2020, it was way, way up here. Okay? 2020, it was way up here. And then the famous TarotLumination book came out. Global Restructuring, January 2020. And that's when the bomb dropped. Pluto conjoined with Saturn, conjoined with Jupiter, January 2020. That was bug number 19. It was a nuclear biological bomb dropped on the world by the elites to enhance the elites. China got caught off guard because they didn't fully understand what was happening. And then this went down to here, and now it's down to here. I'm not kidding. This is what it looks like right now. So this is a visual depiction of how bad it is in China. There's no money going into China. The cash flow has disappeared. I mean, there's still things you can get from Walmart and Home Depot and Lowe's that still come from China, and they probably will for a long time because it's not the big high-tech, high-value stuff. All of that is vaporizing. The solar panels, electric cars, stupid major screw-ups. So that's what's happening right here with China. And Mr. Ping over there in China is aware of this, and he thinks he can fix it. He's actually convinced that all of this happened because of the Chinese Communist Party dream, especially when he came into power over here. He actually thinks he made this happen, and he actually thinks that this is nothing to do with him, and he thinks that he can make this go from here to here like next week. It's I'm sorry, it's doomed. Now, let's see, 10, 20, 30. So back over here, 1990 is when the gates actually opened up, but it was a trickle, okay? So guess what? I don't know if any of you can see this. It should be jumping out at you. If I had done a better graph, you'd probably see it easily. But we've got 10, 20, 30 years, okay? Well, let's call it 94, okay? Let's just do it like this. Let's do it like, let's make it, okay, let's do it like this, okay? Here to here. Guess what that is? Guess what that is? Hello, Heather. 30-year timeline. That should give it away. Let's call it 29 and a half. I'm giving it away, people. Yes! Yes! Well done, Love Triber. It is the Saturn return. I will show you very precisely. This represents the Saturn return for China's economy. Okay? China was born with an economy that's based on an Aquarius horizon and Pisces' second house of money. So, it's a 30-year cycle to go from here to here. And so, there was a tremendous opportunity. The thing is, all of it was abused. Okay, if you look at the China chart for its own self in the CCP, you realize that the whole of the CCP culture is based on abuse, violent abuse. It's like a very abusive father, a very abusive husband who uses violence to get what he wants, and then he sparkleizes himself and dresses up and goes on stage and tells the world that he's a really amazing, kind miracle worker. So what's actually happening is that this guy, Mr. Ping, is actually pretty dumb because he thinks he can control nature, and he can't. So this is what happened mostly because the people originally back here, when China was very, very much an agrarian economy with about 1.1 billion people or something, mostly peasants and farmers, and astronomical amounts of cheap labor, they thought, well, why don't we exploit our labor? He who has the cheapest labor controls the global market. So that's what they did. So effectively, China got to a point where they became so wealthy and so powerful because they had the cheapest labor. The reason they had the cheapest labor is because they ensured that they would have the cheapest labor rather than rewarding the laborers with the revenue that came in. So in other words, the Chinese people today, as you can tell, are being devastated. Over a billion people in China out of 1.4 billion, their lives are destroyed. Destroyed. The yuan, the Chinese, where is it? Okay, over here. The Chinese yuan is collapsing. They cannot print enough money to keep up. So they're turning into an Argentina. They're turning into a Venezuela. It's a doom loop. It's a death loop. And Mr. Ping thinks he can miraculously fix it. So we're going to be witnessing the implosion of China because the Saturn return is here, and whatever can go wrong will go wrong, and it is going wrong. Very scary stuff to witness live in real time. It's all because of the deception of the Chinese CCP leadership over their people. It's the same thing in America with the deception of the American leadership, the banks, the central bank, especially the United States Federal Reserve banking system in collusion with Washington, D.C. and Wall Street. It's a deception. It's all designed to harvest energy from you, the people, and put it in the pockets of the elites. That's it. Very, very simple. And it works very, very well. The problem is with the system is we, the people, are starting to figure it out and realize this is not cool. Hence, going back to Uranus in Taurus, we're starting to see the uprising of an alternative. What is the alternative? Because it's never happened before. We've never been here before in human existence. Well, they're starting to look at Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, in particular Bitcoin, because it was the first, and it's very simple. It's finite. There's only 21 million Bitcoins in existence, and that's it. In other words, you can't overprint it, you can't diminish it, you can't inflate it. It is what it is. It's still very young, it's still hyper volatile, but it is slowly turning into a financial network and a currency simultaneously. In fact, there's even talk right now of incorporating Bitcoin as part of the United States reserves. Crazy stuff, huh? Crazy stuff. A couple of other things I wanted to bring up regarding the lifting of the veil. So you all know about the assassination attempt on Donald. Right now in USA Congress, today was the opening day where the Secret Service was in hearings in front of, oh God, my God, you should have seen some of this. It was just brutal. Absolutely brutal. There's that new guy who's the boss now, stand-in boss of the Secret Service, and he was getting grilled. The ones that I remember were Josh Hawley, what's his name, Jim Jordan, Ted Cruz, and the Kennedy guy from, is it Louisiana? So these four guys were just, they were like attack dogs going after this Secret Service boss. And the Secret Service boss started to look really pathetic and lame, because basically everybody knows they're not, okay, in Congress they have to do these protocols of basically trying to be polite, but it's very hard to be polite in Congress right now with all the fraud, deception, lies, and betrayal. And so those four guys, Josh Hawley, Ted Cruz, Jim Jordan, and Kennedy, were savages. They just went after this Secret Service guy and shredded him. And they're basically going to expose everything and anything that they possibly can in the public stage, in the arena, in Congress. And it's all being recorded, documented, so that the people can find out what actually happened. I don't know if anything will actually come out of the hearing, but because Congress has a habit of doing a lot of stuff and then there's no accountability at the end of it. So we'll see. All I can tell you is that I would not want to be the new head of the Secret Service in America, because he's going to be shredded, absolutely shredded. And I hope they shred him to pieces, rip apart the FBI, the CIA, Secret Service, all of those. It's like a freaking cabal. I don't really want to say too much about Kamala right now, because my stomach can only handle so much. It's mind-boggling what they're doing. Did you hear the one about her so-called convention today? I think it was in Atlanta, and there was about 7,000 people. It was all staged and everything. 7,000 people in an indoor setting. It looked just like a Trump rally. The difference is that the audience was paid. There were teams outside going around recruiting people to show up and say, "Go Kamala," and hold up a bunch of signs. Hello, necessary. So all of that's going to come out. I just think of it as Kamala the movie right now. I'm just going to sit back and kind of watch. I think it's going to be very difficult to dial back the acceleration in war dynamics that's happening all across the world right now, because war is essentially a symptom of failure. It's not just a failure for the United States and the Federal Reserve and the banking system and the government. It's a failure for the whole world and whole of humanity, for all the people, even all the innocent. The innocent are being sucked up as collateral damage into the failing enterprises of the elites, as all the elites war against each other for power and money and control. The collateral damage is we the people. You just have to look at that over here in the Middle East. You know, there's the Jews and the Arabs slaughtering each other, and they're justifying it with all sorts of, you know, legitimate sounding reasons and stories and rationale, history, you know, religion, politics, oil and gas. Then the other wars over here, okay, Russia, Ukraine. We know Ukraine is basically a massive laundromat for the United States Federal Reserve and the Treasury and the banking system and the military-industrial complex and the Biden crime family. That's all going through here. We know about that. However, billions of dollars being pumped in every day. The other day they just sent over $350 million. That's the equivalent of $1 million for every American citizen. Why don't they just give us that money? It's nothing to them. It's just, they've just printed out. Give me $1 million. I will do things as a consumer in the American society. I will buy stuff. I will save. I will invest. I will grow a business. I'll buy a little island. I'll buy a truck. I'll buy a retreat. And you can all come and hang out and visit. Talk about surging economy, you know. Oh, Bubba get. So anyway, that's going on. I don't see that there's a way you can stop it. Yeah. Man, it's just really freaking weird, man. It's getting so weird, it's just like, where do you go? I mean, there's all this stuff on the alternative media, which is owned by the mainstream media. You know, we already, Love Triber just sent me something about the latest mainstream media here in the United States getting their talking points for the news for the evening here Tuesday night in America. And it's all the same wherever you go. CBS, NBC, MSNBC, ABC, CNN. It's all saying like, oh, this whole Trump, J.D. Vance thing is weird. They're weird. They're all saying the same thing. Okay, it's very weird. What's that? Carrie Chanel. Carrie Chanel. I don't know what's going to happen. I've been looking at some of the charts. Right now, the way the charts are lined up, it's actually very, very beneficial for the elites to be able to continue to perpetrate their evil agenda. Because there's a lot of harmony with the trines and the sextiles between Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, and recently the Sun. And that's starting to fade because the Sun is breaking farther and farther away into Leo. And so we're just left with the real... Let me just go here and show you. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So right now, one of the reasons the elites are having such continued ongoing success at maintaining their deceptions and fraud is because there's a lot of harmony here. Okay, these are very, very powerful supportive energies that sadly play into the hand of the elites and the deceivers. Now, at the same time, there is this degree of treachery here, but in terms of power, sheer power, this sacred triangle here is more powerful than this hard square here. It's close, it's very, very close, but it's a balancing act. So what's happening is that the elites are continuing to perpetrate their fraud. It's so ridiculous to watch. It's like a really, really bizarre movie. But that's what they're doing, because they have to keep the script going, they have to keep the movie going, or they're all out of a job. And so they're doing Kamala the movie, Grandpa Joe the failure has to be replaced. They're going to do the assassination of Donald, and that failed spectacularly. So they're like, what are we going to do now? And all of the elite system is being interrogated, but they still have 99% of the power and the money and the control, especially the money, which equals the control, which equals the power. Okay, that's why they want to hold on to the money so tight, so hard, because money is like the actual the tool, the fuel to get the mechanism running, to keep the power, to keep the control. But that will fall apart. Okay, this is going to be here for many, many months to come. This will fluctuate. This, in fact, will become more powerful. This green triangle will become more powerful and supportive for the elites. Okay? So we have to be aware of that. For example, I mean, I'm not going to go into her astrology particularly, but Kamala, as much of a I don't know. To me, she's hollow. When I look at her chart, I see a lot of. I don't want to go into it right now, but the astrology is pretty supportive for her to keep going and get away with who she is and what she's doing and how it's happening, with the support of the cabal and the elites behind her. But this will eventually fade out. Okay, this is a very long-term process. Eventually, this is going to go back here and over to here. Eventually, in 2025, we're going to get the Saturn conjoined Neptune thing right here. Well, we're going to get Uranus on the cusp here. So, basically, we already know it's going to be chaos. Chaos for the next year, at least a year, as we go through this cusp, this cusp, this cusp. Right now, in a few months, this thing is going to have, this thing here, Uranus, is going to have a big, fat, yellow circle around it, just like these two. And they will be in deep harmony and support with each other, which is a big problem for the innocent people of the world. It's very beneficial for the elites. So we have to take that into account. But I guarantee there will be other astrological, let's say, situations with sacred geometry that will counterbalance this thing here. Okay? This is not good. This is not evil. It's just pure energy. It's how we interpret that and use that energy. Okay? So that's kind of what's going on right now. There's a lot more I'd like to share with you, but I want to let you have an evening. You know what? Actually, just give me a second here. I want to check a couple things because it's important to keep them on record. Just bear with me. You know how I like to do this now and again. Just want to go over to here, clickety click. Bear with me. Okay. Over here. Okay, that's the thing. Okay, so there was an exquisite, understandable report today from Gregory Mannarino, I just want to show that to you if I can over here. Let's have a look. This is from Gregory Mannarino. I don't know if I can't really show it to you. But he explains extremely well what's happening with the Fed. The thing that's the thing I wanted to mention. Right now, Venezuela is in a state of civil war. It just happened. Why? Because the elections were fraudulent and the people said enough is enough is enough. Okay, enough is enough. So this is what it looks like in Venezuela right now. Okay, just to get the point across. Okay. Also, I got all my stuff over here. What's happening in Venezuela and China. I think we talked about that. Russia is flexing its muscles. We know about that. There's a spectacular... Anyway, here's what I would do. What I'd like to do. Hello, bright light Beckaboo. Okay, give me a second. What I'd like to do is... I'm going to wrap it up right now, but if you've got time to kill, or you're bored, or you're curious about more and more of this stuff, I would invite you to check out my X. Okay, it's TarotLumination on X. And what I like to do is grab snippets that I think are important, and I just put them there like a log. So it's like a log of what I'm tracking. I basically scan the whole world for things that I feel are important that people need to know. It could be anything from Australia, Brazil, Venezuela, right? It could be anything anywhere. But what I like to do is to correlate what I'm seeing here on Earth with what I'm seeing in my charts, and then distill it in a way that's hopefully understandable, so that people can just go, oh, of course, obviously, duh, no wonder, blah, blah, blah. Oh, no wonder this and that happened. No wonder. Oh, okay. So anyway, I thank you for visiting here, hanging out, and I would invite you to visit my X whenever you get a chance. And just it just gives you extra layers of backup information, so you can see that I just don't make things up out of my head. Okay. All right. I'm sorry for people who just showed up.